My name's Deborah Rudell, and I have written the book Grit and Grace, The Transformation of a Ship and a Soul. And this book is an adventure book about nearly dying on an ocean crossing because we were in gales and we didn't know how to sail. It's also about me leaving a cult in a commune where we were accused of murder and bioterrorism. It was the biggest bioterrorism attack ever on American soil and also the biggest wiretapping installation and network ever recorded on American soil. So there's a few exciting things in this story, as well as building a boat like from scratch up, taking it all apart, putting it all back together. So it's an exciting read. What happened was there was some illegal things that started going on. We didn't, most of us that were there, that there were 10,000 people there. Most of us were there for idealistic reasons. And so we didn't know actually the dark side. And then eventually the leadership fled and we were all left there and the National Guard invaded the place. So we actually had to leave and, and our world was turned upside down and then we had to figure out what happened because none of us knew and of course everything was very inflammatory in the news and it was like what really. So anyways, I wrote my side of it. As I'm sanding and varnishing on this boat, wax on, wax off, for 5 years. This was a long thing. I had lots of time to kind of think about and integrate the things that had happened to me and why they'd happened. And was I really such an idiot that I believed this? Or, like what was it? And what did I really get out of this? So, anyways, I found my way through and I'm very grateful for the experience. I didn't really know I was going to write a book. I took pictures of the whole process to make a photo journal and do articles for Wooden Boat magazine. So I did technical like photos. And it wasn't until about, I don't know, 7 or 8 years ago that I talked to someone who was a writer. San Diego Writers Inc. is a big deal for me. They've been very helpful. Anyways, I met with someone and she talked to me. She said, "Is this a photo journal or is this a story?" And I knew that I would have to, if I said honestly, yes, it's a story, I would have to write it, and it scared the crap out of me. I had started writing some pieces, and then I joined Marnie's memoir group. And I was one of the first to go through her certificate class. And and during that time with reading out loud and being critiqued, I learned about dialogue. I learned about characters. I learned about plots and storylines. So it made my story mu I was able to tell my story much better, having some training and support with a reading critique group. I was walking on the beach in my family's summer cottage, which is up in British Columbia. And a neighbor who'd known my family for years met me on the beach and he said, "I hear you built a boat and sailed across the ocean or something, like." And I looked at him and I said, "Yeah, yeah." And I didn't, for me, it's kind of normal because it was my life. And he got in there with me and said, "You need to write about this. This is important. This is a big deal. You need to write it." And he made me promise to write something that night. And what I wrote that night is sort of was the rough draft of what became my opening for my story. He made me promise. So I did. And then that was in 2009. So it took me about another 6 years before I actually started, really started writing. I did a workshop with Hay House Writers Workshop in Maui in 2015. No, I never grew up dreaming I'd be a writer. That wasn't my big plan. I got told And then, after the neighbor had talked to me, it was this niggling thing. Yeah, you need to do this. So I was pushed from the inside. Yeah. There's a couple of takeaways that I really was wanting to talk about. And one was my side of the story of what happened at the ranch because there is the party line and then there is my experience because I actually lived in the house with Sheila and Sheila became the scapegoat. And I knew I knew another side of the story than what Bhagwan was saying. So I was really wanting to say my side because at the time when he talked to the press, it was pretty radical and he was blaming and everything. And I wanted to stand up and say, hey, wait, that's not true. Because I saw her every night when she went to talk to him and she'd come back and say what he'd asked for. And he was saying he knew nothing about it. And I was like, wait, wait, wait. Masters aren't supposed to lie. What? Anyways, so I couldn't stand up right then because there was the security people with their Uzis because it was very volatile, thousands and thousands of people there, and lots of press. And so I didn't stand up, and I felt bad in myself, like I was a hypocrite because I didn't stand up for the truth, um, and that bothered me. And it bothered me that I wasn't courageous enough to stand up for the truth. So it was a really good thing for me to actually start writing about it. The other thing I wanted to come across in my story is about blame. In our world, there's lots of avenues and excuses to blame others, and that if you do that, you will not be free and you will be bound. And I talk about that in my story of how to get down into, you know, my responsibility for being at the ranch. Why was I there? It wasn't anybody else's fault. I chose to go there. So blame was a big thing. And the other thing is that if you've ever wanted to do something crazy, as outrageous and impossible as it seems, go for it. Like I had never built a boat. I knew nothing about boats. This is before the internet, so you couldn't just look it up. You had to read books. And to go do that and then to sail, to learn to sail, to to just, take a deep breath and let the bow line go and sail off for like a month in storms and gales and survive. Like so I really encourage people because when we were building on the boat, lots of people would come by and say, "Oh, I always wanted to do that." And I would look at them and they'd be, getting some white hair. And I'd say, "Well, you better hurry up and do it because you're going to die soon." If you have a dream, do it before you die, before you're too old. Yeah, absolutely. No matter how, like, I didn't know how to write, I didn't know anything, I didn't know how to put it together. Just follow what that inner thing is that says right. And then also find a group, find a writing group, like three or four people or a coach with a group of people so that you can read your work and have other people listen and get feedback. That really helps because lots of stuff is clear to us as writers. We think that's perfectly clear. With my book, I was writing all about the technical thing of building a boat, sand, what kind of sandpaper, what kind of epoxy, how I painted, how I taped things off, all of that stuff. And they would look at me like, Debbie, but what were you thinking? What were you feeling? Like, what was it like to be there? So they pulled all that. I didn't want to write about the ranch. They pulled that out of me. So that's the benefit for having a writing group. They kind of pull out what would be interesting or what's not clear. So we got married and then we went to Kauai. We heard about this boat. This boat, by the way, was a party boat for Crosby, Stills, Nash and Young. It's on the cover of their Southern Cross album. That boat is Elixir. So if you go on Spotify and look up Southern Cross, you'll see a picture of it. and we thought it would take 6 months because it ended up taking 5 years. So we ended up having sannyasins come. Our friends that had been at the ranch with us would come and help us for a month or two, and live. We had a big house and we all lived communally and work on the boat. And yeah, it was a wonderful experience actually. These endeavors that of the heart that you don't really, they don't make sense in a business way, but they make a lot of sense as far as fulfilling your soul. Yes. Pouring a new keel, taking all the planks off, new decks, new cabins, all the rigging of for two masts and a gaff rig. There was a lot. And on the crossing, we had to get two other guys. There was my husband and I and my son who turned 15, who was taller and bigger than me. But um, we had to get two more guys because I couldn't lift the throat halyard. It lifted me off the deck, like it's heavy, heavy. So it's about, you know, attempted murder, bioterrorism. So I should also mention that I have made an audiobook and I recorded it myself. So it's available on audiobook. It's an exciting book. It's an adventure book and, nearly survival. That's what it is. It's like nearly dying kind of book.